is Wilhelm Windisch from the Technical University of Munich. And I find these things very innovative in terms of protein, but we should not forget in all the discussion that we are transforming biomass. And biomass does not only affect protein, also energy. And this is highly important also when we compare the emissions per kilogram of protein with milk. Is a good example because milk consists only 25% of dry matter is protein and the rest is another thing. It's energy. And this energy comes from anaerobic fermentation of non-edible biomass. And when you produce protein with microbes, you have only the benefit of the protein. But I don't know a system which makes use of the energy of non-edible, of fiber biomass at the same time. And the dairy cow, for example, or ruminant, they combine both. So we compare with all this. We have to be careful. I think this is very innovative. I don't want to criticize. I just, for communication, we have to be very careful when we compare the emissions per kilogram of protein produced with the microbial way with compared with, for example, with the ruminant. Because the ruminant always includes also transformation of non-edible fiber energy into human edible kilocalories. And this is a major point in milk. Don't forget this.
Excellent point. That's why I included some of these elements. Let me say that nothing is better than the sun and then a crop which produces the cellulose, etc., and then the ruminant who can come and upgrade it. Now, what I said is, a bacterium, we can shortcut that. We can shortcut that by microbial technology. But we lose in value. A mixed culture of these bacteria, this is not the milk and the butter and the quality of that. So we lose we don't bring that value through that shortcut. That's number one. But in terms of energy, I think we still win. And we have even an alternative route. We can use sunlight and have photobacteria. You see, all of that is, so in energy, I have not much doubt that we are okay. But in terms of value, added value, there we lose. We don't have that texture, we have not that possibility. And it only works if we use microbiomes. And at this moment, they are in the dark corner of the system.
Hello, my name is Irène Tolleret. I'm a member of the European Parliament, so I will say 4 words to get back on the EFSA thing. EFSA, we have the chance in Europe to have an independent assessing agency. So the regulators, I'm part of them, we should give them more budget so they have more means and maybe change some parts of the legislation. Because when you showed the thing about Conte, novel food is the legislation for the food that did not exist before 1997 in Europe. Conte existed, but if Conte was applied today, it would go to the same legislation, and that's the richness of having an independent assessing agency. However, I have qualms of novel foods, especially when we compare to the food that is produced by farmers, because the farmers, they are with the CAP, so they have a lot of environmental issues that are part of their work and that they have to comply with and improve, but novel food doesn't look at that. Novel food only assesses the impact on human health, and I think that it's high time that on all the legislation we look at in the European and international issue, we take the 360 approach on the impacts, on all the impacts. So I have 2 questions. One is for you. When you did your speech, you said that there were more hunger because of climate change and conflicts. But if people do not have enough food, there are conflicts, but also if they lose their culture. And we can see that there is food. What we change in the food does not only apply in the plate, there is also the pleasure of eating. your presentation was outside of the box. It was not only figures in tables. It was something that wanted us to look with interest at you, and so you look at the pleasure. So can you tell us what is the pleasure with this novel food? Because we will have to, if we want to develop these technologies, that's a question we will have to answer, because otherwise it will not get consumer acceptance. And more also, and that's the question for you, I have noticed, I do not come from the research place at all, I come from a small village, and so I have the feet on the ground. I have noticed that I was told that with renewable energy, it would be fantastic for the planet, huh? But we have renewable energy, and so now we think that energy is free, and so we keep using more energy. And second thing, the web. We were supposed, with the web, not to print anything. I don't know if you have looked at when you do, when you are mayor of a village. Before, when you had a study to do, it was 20 pages because it was printed by a secretary. Now, because you have 600 pages. I can show you photograph. It's unbelievable. So, and last weekend, I saw that a kid doing electric trottinette. But before kids, they were doing bike without energy. So my question is, how can we guarantee that these innovations, we keep them not only for the happy few, where there is the money, where there will be something more and will not change our global impact? How do we make sure that they address the key issues that maybe are some people do not have enough proteins? But that was my question. Thank you. Sorry for having been long.
First of all, great question. It's a very important question, but I'll take as a first statement, I appreciate that you say EFSA has to reconsider. We need to give them that. Yeah, but it's true. This cheese is lovely, but if the French hadn't stood up, it wasn't anymore here. It would have been a pure culture on sterilized milk, right? It's due to the French government, the French farmers who said, no way, They had to have a fierce stand. So I hope that EFSA takes this wisdom of the past and brings it now forward and allows innovation also on different paths. That's number one. But you raised a very important element. Where is the pleasure? And I think the way we propose it here, you see so many people who make their own apple cider, who make their own beer, who make their own kombucha, who ferment on their own, and they are all happy and it gives good products. So the pleasure of having these natural systems under well-conditioned criteria with good guidelines, and to allow this in a diversified way to happen in small industries all over. That pleasure I have not a single bit of doubt. You touched base on an element that I heard with Anne, the other, and I have nothing against, once again, against precision, but you hear precision fermentation. Immediately there is a statement, we are. And it needs a hell of a, but it's okay for me. I'm not against it. I think both must exist, but don't destroy that natural, that spontaneous, that terroir fermentation, as I found in a French publication, of course, revealing that concept of the cheeses. I think the pleasure is indeed that we trust nature and live with nature, and this is what these microbiomal open fermentations can bring. So you touched base.
So I would like to complete about the pleasure and the traditional fermentation. I will give you a very concrete example. Today, have you tried plant-based yogurt? Who has tried plant-based yogurt and who purchased it for the second time or third time? So the repeat of purchase of plant-based is very low. Why? It's because it's missing texture. You cannot retrieve exactly the pleasure that you had to eat traditional yogurts. And all that is related to texture, to pleasure, but behind that there is fermentation, because yogurt is made by lactobacillus fermentation from sugars, lactose, converted to bring that mouth feel that stay in our mouth for very long. And what we're able to provide with a single protein, caseins or whey protein, is that texture to be bring back into fermentation of yogurt, for example. So we are making a yogurt, plant-based fat, plant-based carbohydrate, and we add on top the whey protein produced by microorganisms. And when we add culture, we can get that fermentation to retrieve that texture that we used to have before. So the idea is not to replace, is not to criticize plant-based, but it's just to have an add-on, a new solution to diversify and to allow the industrial to not limit themselves to scare plant-based that you can keep in your fridge only 2 days because the shelf life is so short, and that you have a deep phase and the oily phase on the top, because people will not buy again. So pleasure needs to be really in our mind, and even though it is precision fermentation, even though our quantity is not that huge, the power of the protein that we are producing will allow to retrieve the texture with only 1 or 2%. So this is the first question, first answer. And second answer, it was more about energy. Why we are producing by precision fermentation? Are we adding more complexity in the food system? Maybe. But when it comes to the LCA, we have also integrated the energy megajoule effect. And those figures are minus 50%, so at least half we are reducing energy, even though I am aware that we are using huge tank, 10 cubic meter, 200 cubic meter. We need to heat that tank to warm and cultivate that microorganism for 5 to 10 days. But now a lot of industries, like even bioethanol, are next to biogas and bagasse, for example. So they burn bagasse against steam, and the steam can be exchanged with that factories in order to be more sustainable and to use less energy in order to exchange resources between industries. So we try to do our best to not adding complexity into the food.
I was just going to add from a regulatory perspective in Australia, because all of these things are novel, we don't know about these. So the researchers are working with the regulatory bodies together to actually firstly make them explain as to why and why it's safe. And also we're looking at education programs as well, that people understand that, you know, they're already eating some GMO stuff already, but I think there needs a bit of an education program for consumers as well as to why we're doing this or why this is needed. And on the pleasure side, I suppose, the way I look at it, some of these novel proteins and that we are making is, I'm a big believer in hybrid systems. So we sort of making, plant-based or meat-based, and then you use some of the components that we are producing through these novel systems that adds to it. So rather than having, 25% meat in a system, you're now using maybe 10%, and others comes from some of these novel sources as well. So that gives you that opportunity to appreciate the texture and flavor that you are used to, and then these sort of add, either nutritional component or protein or whatever macronutrients of some sort to it as well. So that's how I would see it.
Hello, I'm Jean-Louis Peyraud from INRAE, so I'm quite interested by this talk this morning. I think we are facing a diversification of food. This is the first point, and we will see what the market will say after. I think that as a researcher, we have a problem of functional unit. We cannot compare this novel food with protein from animal sources, because when we produce protein from animal sources, we produce energy, but a lot of other things. We produce organic fertilizer, we produce a lot of byproducts, liver, tallow, and so on. So I think really we have a basic problem to compare this aspect. So, and in the same time, I think that we need to take the maximum from the carcass of the animals. And I am very, very interested by your talk about what you call power meat. What is it exactly? Is it part of the protein which is used as pet food after, but she come back to human food? And which proportion of protein of the carcass can be produced as a power food, because it will increase the efficiency of animal and especially ruminant. As said by Anne at the beginning, ruminants are very efficient because they use unedible sources of food, feed, for food after. And we can improve the proportion of the carcass which can go to the food chain.
Oh, thank you for that question. So if you look at an animal, in that animal, the meat is only about 40 to 45% of the whole animal, right? So the rest is what we consider waste or byproducts or something like that. So the work we've done so far is looking at manufacturing grade meat. So then taking that meat, and once the steak cuts are taken off, which is only about 20% of the meat, we are then using this manufacturing grade that would normally be used for making burgers and that into these kind of powders. So far, research has only been based on lower value cuts of meat, but we do believe that we could use the other streams as well. So, for example, offal and that comes from it, maybe the skin, maybe the blood. So we haven't done the work yet, but we think that we can then convert those that are the byproducts from those into the system as well. But yeah, we are yet to do the research on it.
The presentation from you from Australia was very interesting, and I would ask, did you find the proper animal to use the biomass? Because for each kind of biomass you use the specific animal to make use of it. In terms of, does this animal have the digestive enzymes to digest this biomass? For example, all these plant-based, these water-based plant materials, the algae, they have laminarine instead of starch. And laminarine is complete 1,3 beta glucosidic bonds, so no terrestrial animal has an enzyme for that. And even fish do not have, but mussels and snails have. So we need to look to the proper animal to convert this biomass we have into food. So we need to expand our livestock system, and we have to look which animals do we have, which can make use of this biomass, and it's so diverse. And our traditional livestock is very, very limited. We have to keep this in mind.
Was this just a comment, or you want me to say that? Explain that. I was just going to say, so the Asparagopsis side, obviously they've done, a whole decade of research to sort of look at the reduction. But yeah, the other stuff that you're talking about, I cannot comment on that.
But I like to say that when these animals digest it, it is because they have a microbiome that does it, and you can transpose it or organize it or engineer it to happen in a reactor system.
We have shown in mussels and snails that they actually do produce their laminariases, their enzyme, which is able directly to attack this. They have a digestive enzyme for this.
I agree with you, but I agree that it also can be engineered.
Okay, I think we can thank all the participants and especially our speakers.